go. We're here. We made it. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
No, that's all right.
So for anyone who hasn't met me or Lewis before, we'll just do a quick introduction and then we're just going to have a chat about our lovely Living Well programme that's coming up.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Cool. Okay. So I'm Sam Fillingham. I'm CEO of PIP-UK. We're the Poland Syndrome charity. And here we have Lewis.
Yeah. Hey guys, how you doing? So if anyone doesn't know me, my background is that, I have Poland syndrome, and I ended up becoming a professional breeder for 6+ years, and it's a bit much longer story, but we're going to talk about our program that we've got coming up for young people with Poland syndrome. So it's going to be a 6-week program that I'm super excited to host and run alongside Sam.
Perfect. Thanks, Lewis. I should tell people my background in Poland syndrome in case they don't know that. So my son George is 13. He was born with Poland syndrome, and I started the charity when he was about 2 years old, just to make sure that no one was ever alone with this rare syndrome again. So that's my background, just been supporting, helping, networking the Poland syndrome community ever since. And that's where me and Lewis met a few years ago now, isn't it, Lewis?
Yeah, I think I don't think I had heard your voice or face or seen your face for like a year and a half before we actually ended up meeting. And then I think it was the pandemic that even started doing that. Zoom became a real thing. So yeah.
This is true. And we still never met in real life, despite the many conversations and work that we've done.
But that's the thing, like with Poland syndrome, like, I've only ever met someone. I think I've only met one or two people with it, like in the flesh, and that only happened like in the last 2 years, I think. 3 years, yeah, definitely 3 years ago. It's when it happened. I've still not met anyone since that time. So shows how rare it is, but also probably how much people keep it quiet, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think when we first met, it must have been like 4 or 5 years ago, because you hadn't met anyone then with Poland syndrome when we first started talking, because I remember that. And I remember the first time I met someone else other than George with Poland syndrome. I think I connected with a lady in my local town, and like I was so excited that there was someone else nearby with Poland syndrome. Like, it means the world, doesn't it, when you connect with someone else with Poland syndrome?
How's George affected?
So George, he's got a really mild case in that, so his left hand is small and underdeveloped. He was born with webbed fingers, which were released with an operation when he was 1, and he's missing his major pectoral muscle as well. But he's got all bones and joints and things, so I think really he's like on the sort of mild end of the spectrum, which is really, really lucky.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's such a rare people and the cases like Paralympians like Kim's different, and there's so many other people that are different. Like I never had a hand deformity, which I was thankful for, but it's my chest that's affected and the ribs. So yeah, it's a wild difference in everyone.
Yeah, such a spectrum of differences, isn't it? Even with just having Poland syndrome, like, it's amazing. We're only scratching the surface with that, aren't we? But I mean, I could talk all day about that, because that's like a lot of what I do every day, and it's not what we're here to talk about, is it, primarily? But it's a nice little intro. So so we've got our Living Well programme that we've been working on for a few months now together, haven't we, in the background, been cooking up the ideas, and you've designed this amazing program for young people with Poland syndrome, and I think it'd just be really good to just give like a brief outline of like what people can expect from the course if they're thinking about signing up.
Yeah, well, without going into, I guess, too granular detail with everything that's going on, whether you've got Poland syndrome or not, the world we live in right now, I think, from elite athletes that I work with and been around in my experience to the everyday young person, we have this huge confidence crisis. Like, people don't really have a true understanding of who they are, and where they want to go and what they want to do, or they're getting caught up in the idea of who they should be or who others want them to be or who others are, and then forgetting their true authentic self of what it is that they want to achieve and who they want to be. So this course, this 6 weeks, it's not going to fix everything in 6 weeks, but it's going to introduce a new way of thinking, which is starting to go into really, I know we've got 6 weeks, but there's 3 core sections that I want to go through, and that will be running alongside the Mind Strong journal that I've created. So the Mind Strong journal is created not only for athletes, but we've tailored it for these young people with Poland syndrome. And the process of that is taking the human being first. So looking at who you are as a human being, where you've come from, the journey you've been on, the stories that you can come out of that journey you've been on. And what are the messages that you find that are common? What are the things that you've perhaps overcome? Perhaps some negative experiences that we can start to reframe. And then we can start to look at the strengths that you have. What are the things that you're really good at? What are you well known for? What is the type of person you would like to be known as? And are you upholding those values and behaviors? And then we move on to what it is that you want to do. So if it was an athlete, we'd be looking at the type of athlete you wanted to be. But in this case, we'll be looking at the types of things you want to achieve and perhaps some of the limiting beliefs that are behind what you want to achieve. So what is it that you want to achieve, and perhaps some of the obstacles you either perceive through your own self-talk or some of the physical obstacles that you're going to come against. And by simply writing them down and simply talking about them, you're going to make them real. So you're going to make them something that you can see, and then start to unravel in how you can create action behind those. So once you've written it down, we ruminate these stories in our minds over and over again, and we tell ourselves these negative stories, or we can think one thing and it not be true. But once we write it down, or we start to look at those stories, we can start to tell a new one and write out the story that we want to go on, which nicely links in with the last bit, which is the journey that you're going to go on. And that is the map that you want to take moving forward. So now you've figured out who you want to be, what it is that you want to achieve, and now how are we going to do it? So what are the habits that you want to create? What are the types of personal behaviors you want to show? What are the physical attributes you want to have? And what will set those up? So it could be positive habits of journaling every day, writing something down. It could be meditation. It could be exercise. It could be seeing friends. It could be anything that fills up your bucket physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that is the main first part. And then finishing off with the practices, which will be my background of using mindfulness and meditation and yoga for athletes, and bringing in things like breathing techniques, meditations that will allow you to build positive self-talk, mantras. It'll allow you to harness anxiety and stress. But mainly, the one that I'm most excited about is the idea of viewing the stories that you're telling yourself. So I know for a fact, like, I told myself different stories when I was growing up. I told myself stories of the person I thought I could be, or the person I did who I'm not. And by just actually reframing those stories, by simply spending some time looking at those stories that you see in your mind, then you can start to change them. You can start to actually reframe them. You can start to build a new story, and notice that the voice you're perhaps listening to is the negative voice in your head. And we want to flip it to being the positive voice in your head. We want it to be the one that is looking at the strengths you have, not the limiting beliefs, the opportunities and the obstacles that you face. Because it's so easy with someone with our condition to sit there and think, I don't have this, and this is a part of me that I don't have. Whereas I'm always fortunate thinking of the things that I did have, and all right, my right side is weaker, but my left side is still strong, and how can I use that? And how can I use the whole owning my condition and owning my whole unique story, and how can I use that to inspire others? How can I use that to change, whether it's the people in my local friendship groups and communities, or how can I start to really, using the power of something like social media, start to spread that and do something bigger? And that's taking the real, looking after yourself and making it something bigger at the end. And you do that by finding your own method, finding out who you are, and having the skills so that when you fall, you can pick yourself back up.
Yeah, I mean, like, such crucial stuff for anyone at any stage of life to dig into, you know, like the obstacles you're facing, what you want to be, what you want to do in the world. It's, you know, to be able to work on that with someone that's been there and worked on it themselves is just amazing. Am I right in thinking, like, with if you're looking at obstacles that people with Poland syndrome are facing, it could be like even the smallest of obstacles to the biggest, and the same with what they want to achieve. So, you know, I talk and support a lot of people that like won't even take their t-shirt off, for instance, you know, going swimming and things like that.
Yeah.
Could people just rock up at the sessions and be like, that's what I want to overcome?
Yeah.
Like, you know, just get past that.
That's so true. Like, that's actually something that I struggled with. Like, I actually was one of those kids who, if I could cover my, I have old images of me like at the beach, and I loved going to the beach, and sun is just the thing that I love. Like, and being an athlete and having your top off. Like, I used to put my towel over my right shoulder, and that was the thing that I would hide, and I would do that so much so that it was just a habit. But I think even when you're doing it as a habit, you still know you're doing it. Because probably I think the story that I was telling myself was, what if someone calls me out and like calls out my condition? And I probably didn't have an answer for it. Like, in the time, I hadn't really sat down and sat with myself and thought, what is my answer? Like, what am I going to say to someone who has who maybe questions my condition? And once I'd started to go, do you know what? This is the reason why, and I can either describe it functionally in the sense that, like, this is what's mechanically going on, or I can actually describe it in the sense of, like, this is what it means for me, and these are the things that I try to bring to the world. So it could be something as simple as that, but building a story or building a phrase or a mantra that you can use in those moments when you're feeling that anxiety, that self-doubt, that low self-esteem, that you can say to yourself or say to a person who challenges you on it, because that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of being literally caught out in the open. And you can give it to them, and you're confident that that's your authentic self. That's the authentic reason behind what you're doing. And we said it before in the chats we've had. If you can do that for a young person now, you are so far ahead of the game. You are so far ahead of where you should be, because there are 50-year-olds who don't know this stuff. There's 50-year-olds that are, I think the stuff that we've spoken about around parents with kids that have the condition, I think that's super important. There's so many areas that by just figuring out who you are, what it is that you want, that will give you a inner strength and a mental strength that can not only benefit you, but benefit those around you, whether that's your family, your friends, whatever. You can be a shining light.
Completely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's something really powerful about getting people of a similar age together who have a similar condition. There's something really powerful about, if you've not had the words to be in those situations yet, if you've not been able to face a situation where you've taken your t-shirt off, ready with what you're going to say about it, and you've not even had anyone who's got a missing chest muscle to talk to about it, to say, like, do you say this? Or do you say that, you know, and how does that feel? Like, there's some real power in those conversations that could be had of, like, let's try this out together and see how we get on, or, you know, little things like that, of people the same age that have gone through the same thing could make a real big difference to young people with Poland syndrome, I think.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about it earlier about, do I wish something like this had existed when I was a kid? And yeah, for sure. Like, because funny enough, on my podcast recently, I spoke to Chris Mosier, who's the first trans athlete to make it in Team USA. And he was talking about growing up, didn't have anyone to know the experiences that he was going through growing up and transitioning into a man later on in life. But it's the same with something like this. Like I never had a yardstick for how to navigate the world with it, or
Yeah.
how to manage certain situations that might come up. Like, do you know what to say to girls when they first see it? When I'm like starting to have relationships, like there was no one telling me what to do. I figured it out myself. But the thing that I did figure out was people didn't care about it. Like, in that being the most vulnerable situation, if you're in an intimate situation with, say, like another, that is literally when you are your most vulnerable, and that was okay. I've never had a bad experience in the sense that no one questioned it. No one made me feel. They got to know me first before anything else, and that I think is one of the biggest learning experiences I ever had with trying to overcome any self-doubt around the condition. Is the story you're telling yourself in your head is so far worse than the one in reality. And if we can, through this 6 weeks, give those kids that experience of just being able to ask questions, like simply, okay, great, we're learning a lot about myself, but there will be elements of asking myself, asking you, we're having Kim on one of the sessions, and asking people who have gone through it, who are a little bit older, who know what steps are coming, because the world is more visible now with something like social media. And if you can be ready for, or if you can have your own self in order and your own story sorted, and yourself as strong as it can be, and you, like I said, you're way ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that idea of like having a roadmap to like navigate this time in life, even if they come away with just the signposts of where they're going to go a little bit with some of this. It will mean so much, won't it? You know, and
everyone's story is going to be different. Everyone's journey is going to be different. But the idea of this 6 weeks will just be to hand them some sort of toolkit that, when they are on that journey, on that windy road, whatever corner they face or whatever hump they have to climb and mountain they have to climb, that they have a skill set that allow them to do it and not feel like they're going to be less of a person if they fail at something, or if something doesn't go their way, or they see someone else who's doing better than them and has more than them, and feel like it's taking away from them. So that's an exciting part of this program.
Yeah, it is, for sure. Absolutely. And so we're doing it on Zoom. So it's 6 weeks, an hour a week. We're starting on the 27th of October. If there's people that are kind of zoomed out or are looking at it and thinking, how am I going to talk about like hiding my chest on Zoom, or, you know, uncovering some of these difficult things in that group setting, what would you kind of say to them to just help them, like, just take the leap? And
well, I think the best thing is that we will be having the journals. So the journals will allow it to be you'll have time to do things on yourself. But other than that, how often do you get 20 other people that are potentially going through the same experiences that you have? And I used to be that person who may sit at the back of the room when you're in a physical room, and you're at the back of the room, and you never ask that question, and you wish you had, and you wish you'd known the answer, and you wish you'd reached out and asked that question. And I always think, like, what have you got to lose if in this situation? What have you got to lose by saying something? You're better off saying something and getting that answer than living with the regret of it not happening. So yeah, I think that's the biggest part of that. If people are, Zoom fatigue, yes, is a real thing, but this is going to be such a unique experience for people that have got the condition and that are living with it, that this may not be an opportunity that comes along very often. So take it. Like, I would be wrestling at it if I'd known this was coming when I was a kid.
yeah, absolutely. And me too, for sure, to be honest with you. And I think from my point of view, like, I've done a lot of work on sort of fear and, you know, mental health stuff around that. And from my old mum's point of view, as I feel these days, I would say, like, feel the fear and just do it anyway. If you sat there thinking, I really want to do it, but I'm just not sure, just take a big deep breath and just fill out the form. You
Yeah.
just never know where just spending this short amount of time with people going through the same stuff and with an elite athlete coach is going to take you. So yeah, feel the fear, do it anyway, take a big breath and
Yeah.
sign up.
And the other thing as well, like with the things that we're going to be talking about, and I've had from kids that have had the condition, or have the condition, have come forward with, because I get messages online as well, and if anyone is listening to this and they want to ask questions, like, please send me a message. I get back to 100% of people that send me messages. And the thing that, yeah, that I think is super important for people just to remember is that this is an opportunity to, yeah, I've had experience from the elite players that I've worked with and I've been in, but they go through the same thing. They have the same self-doubts and same self-fear. So whatever it is that you're feeling, like, they feel it too. They're human as well. So it's not like it's coming from a place of, I'm going to bring this elite mindset to you. It's, I'm going to bring some things that will help you out for sure, but don't worry, they're human. Like, they're feeling the same things you feel. It's just what you've got going in your life is slightly different. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be an elite athlete or have ambitions to be one at all. You just need to have Poland syndrome and be based in the UK and be between 16 and 25. And that's, you know, who we've got the funding for right now. That's who we're offering it to. And we talked like we would love to offer this to all ages and all around the world in the Poland syndrome community. But at the minute, the funding's just not there. So we had lots of back and forth conversations and feedback with the young people, didn't we? And we just decided to like go for this with this group. Let's make it really good, and if this works and is successful, then we'll go out and look for funding and bring it to other groups of people as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. There are a lot of people outside of the UK that are seeking this. I know the US is a big one as well. Like, there's a lot of people in the US, and I'm excited by it. I really hope people do jump on, and again, if there's kids there and they want to bring their parents along, I definitely recommend them like them watching some of the sessions as well, because I think that parent-child relationship in this space is important anywhere, but it's very important with this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And important to say as well that we've had to create a wait list for people outside of the UK and not in this age group who have been really interested, because we've had so much demand for it. So check out the PIP-UK Instagram and Facebook pages for a link to that if you're interested. And we will see what we can do once we've got the evaluation from this sessions to get more funding to do something like this again.
And if people are interested in things like the journals, like, come reach out to me, because I'm just about to get those printed off, not just for this, but for the everyday person and athlete as well. So they'll be available.
Yeah, they're pretty special, the journals.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, they're quite exciting. And you know, we don't want to ruin it for the people that are going to get them and use them, but it's worth just saying, like, they'll work through those in these sessions, which will be fantastic, but they're going to be able to keep them forever and refer back to them as well. And I think that is a real lovely resource that's going to be coming to them as part of this as well.
Yeah, that's the main aim of the thing. It's like the journal itself is that you can hold on to it. You don't have to think of it as a diary to tell you where you're going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's a personal process and almost a workbook with some space at the back to do your own thing. But mainly it's your own journey that you're going on, and it's for you to refer back to in times of need you do it, or maybe times of triumph, to just keep you grounded and keep you being consistent in who you are, what you're trying to achieve, and keep you maybe redirected.
Absolutely, it's amazing. Okay, we're going on a bit, aren't we? But I thought it's worth covering. Like, how did you learn these mindset techniques? How did you first come across it and bring it into your life?
So part of it's experience, but with things like mindfulness, meditation, that all came through. Started off as teaching myself and just basically researching and going in, but the thing with mindfulness and definitely something like meditation, there's no right or wrong way. There's just the experience itself, and you're not. I think some people get maybe caught up in like who's teaching you or anything like that. But for me, I trained as a yoga teacher out in Hawaii for I did a 30-day intensive thing, and it was a great experience after my cricket career. And that was that moment of going from having the best job in the world and living the high life of being a professional athlete to then having it gone within one day through injury is a really tough time, especially for your identity. So I lost a lot around my identity because I was hanging a lot of myself on what I was doing, which was a cricketer. And it took a lot of self exploration through my practice of yoga and meditation and mindfulness, but again, real self-reflective work, trying some things, getting it wrong, looking back at my story, figuring out who I was, who probably was I trying to be. Like I almost saw myself as this chameleon type person that used to mold myself to the room and try and change who I was depending on the room I was in, and seeing things like that. And all of those came from my ability to see where I was thinking, like look at what the thinking mind was doing, what was the story I was telling myself. And once you see it or you write it down, then you can either look at it and be like, that is not true, that is not being kind to myself, and it's definitely not timely, and start to rebuild it, start to be like, right, well, who do I want to be? Like, who is Lewis? Like, who's the person behind the curtain, as Jim Carrey says when he's performing? But it was I mean, that sounds like something that may have happened quite quickly, but I'm talking maybe 5-6 years of that all unraveling, but also looking at probably even before my cricket career and all the things that I went through as a child and the hard work that I put in. And there's so many different stories and little quotes that you can get out of it for sure, but the messages are very similar across the board, whether it's being an elite athlete or life, like putting in hard work and being dedicated, just being a good person. They sound simple, but they can be challenging, and if you don't understand who you are, then it can be a lot harder. So yeah, a lot of that was learned through my own experiences, I think.
Yeah. And there's so much in like you learning that and overcoming those difficult times that you can sort of help people to overcome their hard times as well, whether they're in them or, you know, to prepare them for them to come, to have those tools for when those, like, you know, really difficult times in life come up. And they don't just happen when you're young, you know, throughout your life. It's just, you know, a windy road, isn't it? So to get some tools that they can take through life for when that time comes up, and especially to have them written down as well, because we all forget stuff over time. So
Yeah.
to be able to draw back on them, it's just so powerful, isn't it? I really truly, like, I keep saying this to anyone I meet or I talk to about this, like these sessions will be life changing.
Yeah.
They really will be.
Yeah.
Truly believe that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get them going and just have that experience. I know there'll be probably some time that we won't get with them, and there'll be so many questions after, but yeah, just the time we're going to have is going to be, I'm really excited by it.
Yeah. And it's like a safe, confidential space as well, isn't it? Like, we're not recording it, we're not sharing it with anyone else. It's just the people in the room. And, you know, we've got those journals. If they don't want to share stuff out loud, that's perfectly fine. There'll be all sorts of different characters, you know, of people that come along. So I guess, you know, you just sort of bring yourself as you are on that day and just go with the flow, and you'll guide them through that as well, because I know that's very much your mantra, isn't it?
Yeah. No, there will be, I think the big thing to remember, there will be practical things you'll get out of this. Like, it won't just be like this sort of esoteric thing. It'll be really practical. Like, there'll be actual things that, whether it's breathing techniques, but also mantras that you can tell yourself, and they'll be so personal because it's not me giving them to you, it's you creating them, me just guiding you through the process.
Yeah, exactly. You just help, that helping hand to just weave those techniques and experience into it and make it personal for them. It's yeah, fantastic, fantastic stuff. I think that's all my questions that I wanted to go over with it. Did you want to cover anything else about the session?
I think for a live, we've absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? We did pretty well. Especially considering this is my first. I mean, you're a seasoned professional with these.
Oh, no, I should be jumping on lives more. That's definitely something I should be doing because I love over on Sport Yogi. I like doing things on there, but just having travelled around, being in Australia, coming back, I never got myself in like a grounded space to be able to like set myself up to like a solid routine of doing it and coming online. I'm coming on live often, so I need to do it more. One thing I definitely need to do.
Yeah, it's been really nice just to like talk over it all and share it, because we've been having similar conversations for a little while, and to be able to now sort of share it with the world and they can, you know, see is just really nice. So I hope people have enjoyed it. I hope they understand a bit more about the sessions. And, you know, if you are between 60 and 25 based in the UK and have Poland syndrome, sign up. Your life could have changed by Christmas. Come on, people.
Yeah, it'll be the best New Year ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. It'd be like bring on 2022 by the end of this call.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, great way of looking at it.
Absolutely. All right, well, get in touch with me or Lewis if you've got any other questions or anything comes up. And thank you for everyone that's joined us and everyone that watches after too. And we will see you soon, Lewis. Thank you.
Catch you soon, Sam. Cheers.
Now, bye.